The middle of the year comes around earlier and earlier each time. I swear, at some point it's going to be the middle of the year in like March. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today, like every single year, I am taking the mid-year book freakout tag. I absolutely love this as a way to kind of check in at the halfway stage of the year. How has your reading been going? What are some things that you are looking forward to? I absolutely love taking this every single year. I reach that kind of checkpoint and it really does give me a boost on how my goals are going, and it gives me a chance to look at what's happened but what is yet to come. As with every year, question one is, what is your favourite book that you have read so far in 2025? And that is Here One Moment by Leanne Moriarty. I went into this with such little expectations, but it absolutely blew me away. This is about a plane full of people who are on a delayed flight from Hobart to Sydney. And a woman of slightly elder years goes around to every single person on the plane, including flight attendants, the captain, everybody, and gives them a diagnosis and an age. She is given the moniker the Death Lady when some of these predictions start to come true. And you're following a couple of people from this flight who have been given different diagnoses and what is going to happen to them, what their psyche is like after this, and how they are living their lives. It gave me a really good chance to kind of check in with myself and think about what I would do if I had been given that same thing. If I was given when I was going to die, or how, or both, are there things that I would do in life separately, or would I just keep ploughing on as I had been before? I thought it was such an interesting concept. The way it was written was so gripping and enthralling that I just could not put it down for the entire time that I was reading it. Question two is, what is the best sequel you've read so far this year? And I have read surprisingly few of them. For the series that I've read, it's all been kind of starting them off. So I didn't really have a whole lot to pick from here. But from what I did have, the cream of the crop was definitely Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Something that I really love about her books is that there is plenty of tension and there is plenty of chemistry between the two characters, but there is little to no spice. Sometimes you just need a book that's not very heavy on the spice, not very heavy on the smut, but still has all of the hallmarks of a romance book that I really enjoy. The tension and the chemistry, and a really great couple that I have been rooting for the entire time that I'm reading it. It follows Will and Annie. Annie's brother Nathan is getting married to Amelia, and Will is Amelia's bodyguard. So Will is back in Rome, Kentucky for the entire festivities of the wedding, helping to plan everything, helping to put the security detail together, and then he's going to move on to a new challenge. I really enjoyed the kind of Pygmalion vibes of this book because Annie is going to teach Will how to be a good girlfriend, and Will is going to teach Annie how it is to go on a date and what it is that guys are looking for when they're going on dates. Obviously, these two fall in love with each other almost from the word go, and I absolutely loved seeing them really pine for one another, not knowing how the other was feeling, but knowing that it was so strong within them. It's not always something that works for me, but here it was done so well. There is yet another book in this series, Beg, Borrow or Steal, that came out in January or February, and I still haven't gotten to it yet. It is on my shelves. I just haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, but I do think that moment is starting to become a little bit more imminent than it was. Question three is your favourite reread so far this year. And I do really enjoy going back to books, re-immersing myself in the world, revisiting the characters, and getting to know everything about the book again. But my favourite reread of this year is a little bit of a strange one because it felt almost like a new read. I picked up The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston at the end of June, and I genuinely didn't remember a whole lot of this book. Main reason for that is that I read it back in August 23, and that is when the first iteration of the Amazing Readathon was happening. And during that time, I was the team captain for the yellow team, so this book would have given me a whole lot of points. But because I was reading, I never really stopped to actually take anything in. So now that I had the actual opportunity to sit down and to read it cover to cover and actually take everything in, I found myself getting more and more gripped in this. Now, yes, there were things that I did remember from it. There were points of the plot that I was like, yeah, I remember this coming up. But truly, some of them actually did stand out to me as well, as I don't remember this ever happening. And this is why I'm such a big fan of rereading, because you'll take something from it every single time you read it. You might take something different. You might notice something that you never picked up on before. You might notice little points that are coming across that you really should have paid attention to the first time. I absolutely adore rereads for that reason, and this is one of the best rereads I think I've had in such a long time. Question 4. A new release that came out already in 2025 that you haven't picked up yet, but that you cannot wait to get your hands on. I've got 3. The aforementioned Beg, Borrow and Steal is definitely on the list, particularly since I have been talking again a little bit more about Practice Makes Perfect. It's just spurred me on a little bit, and it's just made me want to read that book a little bit more than I had already. But also, some that have just recently come out is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have heard every single person talking about this in such a positive light. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. I am so intrigued to see what it is that everybody else has loved about it that I'm possibly going to love as well. What it is that has gripped so many people. And I really enjoy a Taylor Jenkins Reid book anyway, so I have a feeling that it's going to be for me in the sense that I'm going to enjoy the writing style, I'm going to enjoy how the characters are written, I'm going to be gripped in by the little twists that always come towards the end of a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I just need to know what it is. And another author who I hang on every single word of is Frederick Backman. And My Friends came out at the beginning of June, and I still haven't gotten my hands on a copy of it. I absolutely love his books. They have this inane quality to just rip my stomach out and kick it around. And I cannot wait to get my hands on it, but I also know that I need to have nerves of steel when I'm going into that book. The next question is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of 2025? And there is basically one book that I can't wait to get my hands on. The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman is coming out in September, and I and my family need this copy biblically. We read the entire Thursday Murder Club series as a little family book club group, and we will get together when we're all back in the same country. We'll talk about the books, we'll talk about what we liked about them, what we didn't like about them, the characterization of them, and I cannot wait for us to keep that little circle going. Now, we are also really excited about the adaptation that is coming out towards the end of August. I am going to be back in Ireland in September, so I know that we are going to have one night where we just book out the couch. The 3 of us are going to go and sit on the couch with drinks, with popcorn, and whatever we want, and we are just going to binge the entire thing. Question 6, what is your biggest disappointment? And unfortunately, that crown goes to Emily Henry. I read Great Big Beautiful Life, and I had heard a lot of comparisons to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That is one of my favorite books of all time, so I went in hoping that I would have the exact same experience here, and I just didn't. I feel like there was too much going on in this book. It was trying to be part Evelyn Hugo, part a romance between Alice and Hayden, and I really do think that it should have just been split into 2 different books. The whole story with Margaret and her backstory would have made a really solid book by itself. And the whole story of Alice and Hayden would have also made a really strong book by itself. But there was just so much back and forth. I felt myself losing the thread of one story while we were being updated with another. It was just too much happening that I think it was stretched a little bit too thin. Question 7, what was your biggest surprise? I went into Frankie by Graham Norton, not really expecting a lot because I'd had an up and down with his books recently. I really enjoyed The Keeper, but Forever Home just didn't do anything for me. But Frankie was a phenomenon. It follows an elderly woman, I think she's in about her 80s or so. She is living in London and she's recently had a fall and broken her hip. She needs to have somebody come in as her home help, which is where Declan comes in. He also grew up in the small area of Cork where she grew up, and she basically tells him her entire life story while they're getting to know each other, while he is taking care of her. And we go through an entire decades-long story of growing up as an orphan in Cork, of living with her uncle who was a canon and his wife, of moving to London first, then moving to New York. I was spellbound by this book. There are some really heartbreaking chapters in here, but there's also a lot of triumph and there's also a lot of friendship and warmth in here. It has spurred me on for anything else that Graham Norton is going to bring out, so let's see where he brings me next. Question 8 is your new favourite author, be that a debut author or somebody who is just new to you. I'm going to go with both. My new favourite debut author is Vicky Notaro. This is her second book, Long Story, But in May, I read Reality Check, which was her debut novel. And if you are a fan of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or The Real Housewives Saga or Keeping Up with the Kardashians, this is the book for you. I am not really of that world, but that didn't stop it from dragging me in and holding me in its clutches for an entire book. One of my favorite characters for my entire 2025 reading comes from this book, and I cannot wait to pick up Long Story and see what it's going to be about. Vicky Notaro worked as a journalist for years and years, so you can tell that she's got a really great way with words, and that definitely shows in Reality Check. So I'm hoping that Long Story, which is about an actress and a podcaster who have been best friends for years and promised that a man was never going to come together, which has not particularly been held to for the last few years, I'm so excited to see what that story is going to be like. It features women's friendship as a huge focus on this book, and that's the kind of story that I really enjoy. As for an already established author who I read for the first time in 2025, I loved Frida McFadden's The Boyfriend. I've given it to a friend of mine and she was also completely enthralled by it, but I have got to read The Housemaid. I feel like this is the kind of book that I want to go into in like October, when it's getting a little bit dark, it's getting a little bit spooky. I feel like it's the kind of vibes that October is just crying out for. I haven't gone into a whole lot about what the book is about, but I have picked up another couple of Frida McFadden books on my travels throughout 2025 because I need to read a lot more of her. I really enjoyed her writing. I really enjoyed how she writes characters. The suspense that are in her books is just phenomenal. So I'm hoping I just continue to have a great time with her. In a follow-up to that, question 9 is your newest favorite character, and I have to give it to Desi from Reality Check by Vicky Notaro. She was just the epitome of a momager. If you can imagine Kris Kardashian but put her in a book, that is where you want to go. But what I really loved as well is that Desi was from Ireland and she never let her Irish roots go. There was always something inherently of Ireland about her, despite having lived outside of Ireland for over 50 years, despite having set up her life in the US, despite her children technically being more American than they are Irish. I just loved watching her come back to Ireland in the later stages of the book and re-immersing herself in the culture, rediscovering neighbours that she hadn't seen in decades because she'd been away for so long. Desi is the kind of person that I hope to be when I grow up in a really weird way. I always have to skip to question 10 because it's a book that made you cry, and I am made of stone. I don't cry a lot at books unless it's something particularly hitting. I've cried at books about illnesses, I've cried at books about death, about grief, about bereavement before, but nothing has really brought anything out of me in 2025. So, on to question 11, which is a book that made you happy. And I don't necessarily know if it's a book that made me happy, but it did make me laugh so much that my side split. And that is The World According to Kunk by Philomena Kunk. If you have seen any of the Philomena Kunk series, you'll know exactly what it is that is in store in this book. There's nothing really surprising about it. It's almost like take the script of one of the shows and just make it a book, but it's still done in such an interesting way that the zaniness is still there, but you still have a little bit of information in there as well. I don't know how they managed to marry those two so perfectly. It just works. Question 12 is the most beautiful book that you have received so far this year, or bought, or had given to you. And that is Priest by Sierra Simone. Now, I haven't read this one yet, and I say yet because I keep meaning to pick it up. I feel like I'm just going to do it on one little stretch of time that all I have ahead of me is free time to read a book, because it's the kind of thing that I feel like I want to dive headfirst into. This is Fleabag, but make it a book and make it much, much more raunchy. This is about a Catholic priest who is kind of tempted by one of the parishioners at his church and the explosive sexual relationship that comes from that. Now, I am not particularly squeamish when it comes to sex scenes, but I've heard that this one is just wall-to-wall smut, and let's see how that's going to work out for me. Final question, question 13. What is a book that you need to read by the end of 2025? Allow me to introduce you my entire bookshelf, but there are a couple that I've definitely got my eyes on. First one up is So Thrilled for You by Holly Bourne. I've heard such good things about this one, and I'm really interested in the concept. It's about a group of friends who have known each other since college and have kind of drifted in and out of each other's lives at different points over the last 10 or so years. But now, one of them is pregnant, and a baby shower is being organised that ends in chaos. All four of these women have got different secrets to keep, and all four of these women are looked at as a suspected person who started the fire. I'm also really intrigued by the idea of Ordinary Saints by Niamh Ní Mhaolón. This sounds really intriguing. It is about a young woman who grew up in a devout Catholic family but has left that all behind, has left Ireland, and is now living in London with her wife. She hears that her younger brother, who passed away a few years ago, is being considered for the sainthood. She knows everything about what his life was like before he died, and that he might not be the best candidate for a sainthood. But it has forced her to reconcile with her life before and what has turned out for her life now. I am so intrigued by the idea of both of these books that I just know I have to read both of them by the end of the year. Every single person I've heard talking about them has only gotten praise for it. Let's just see if I'm in the same boat. Those are my answers to this year's iteration of the mid-year book freakout tag. What is the best book that you have read so far in 2025? Or what is a book that surprised you either positively or negatively this year? If you'd love to leave me a comment, but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave me the calendar emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.